here's another reason why you want to take control of what you're doing.
Everything kind of funnels into the only winning move is not to play the game.
I don't know, guys. This whole thing sounds pre-recorded.
Hey, welcome to episode 56 of the Weather Report. Thank you guys for being here. I want you to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. If you find the entertainment value of this, great. And also, you can go over there and tip us at buymeacoffee.com at Weathered Soul. Go over there to, give us some cash because we need your cash. But hey, we've got a full show for you tonight. This is episode 56. We're in our second year of podcasting. I want to congratulate everybody who's here, like Ken and Jason, and our special guest today, Michael Sparks. And Michael Sparks, he's got his hands in a lot of stuff. We know Michael Sparks from the Jason Stapleton lair that we all hang out in and that we all met in. And I just wanted to welcome him today. Michael, how you doing, Michael?
Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I don't typically do any live stuff at late at night. You know, it's usually drinking time for me. So people don't want me to be on because I might say things that could hurt people, but I'm only drinking coffee tonight. So we'll be pretty good. And I might let a couple words slip. I'll do my best not to, but so today's my 55th birthday, and I thought,
great.
we had alcohol last night.
Exactly
so we'll
right. I forgot about
tonight.
that. Yes, happy birthday to you for sure. Absolutely.
The double nickels, man, they keep coming, and I just keep taking them. So
yeah, I got that 10-year advance on you. So mine coming up in May. So
well, don't let me catch you. That's the whole thing.
I'm the old guy here. Yeah, I'm the old guy here. But welcome Ken and welcome Jason. Good to have you guys back again. And like I said, we met Michael. I've known Michael for about a year and a half now since he was in the Jason Stapleton group, his current group that he has in now. Ken has known him for a lot longer than that, for some odd reason or another. I don't know why. I've known Ken for 4 years now.
We were in the group where he had that whole separate social
the Nomad
thing.
Network.
That was like 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah,
it had to have been at least over 2 years because that's where I met Ken, and we were before that. So it's probably 3 years ago.
Probably
where he had that whole special forum, and we were on there all the time, and then he closed that down and do his other thing. After that closed down, I just kind of quit following. I don't know.
Yeah,
too many other things going on.
A lot of stuff we do is like that, but welcome here. So you have met Ken personally before. So I mean, I know that you've been up there. I've met Ken personally and Jason before, but this is the first time that me and you have met. But me and you are all over social media. So we're on Facebook and X, and we're also on Nostr, which I hope that we'll get into either in the first hour or in the second hour. That'd be great.
Oh, this thing was 2 hours? Holy smokes. Okay. I'm glad you told me that.
If you want to do 2 hours, you can do 2 hours. We just want to do an hour. We're just doing an hour.
No, that's okay. We'll figure it out. I'm good now. I had a nap today, for my birthday.
If it's any consolation, you remember Amy Nichols, the from the Nomad Network? Her and I just did a podcast a few weeks ago, and it went for 4.5 hours.
Oh my gosh.
So we won't do that to you. But her and I get talking.
I could talk for 4.5 hours probably, but yeah.
You're in good company then.
Yes.
I don't have problems talking. I just have problems once I get going, and being in front of a camera. I've got cameras and I've got the little things to do. I turn the camera on. I feel like, ugh. But now I can talk like this is fine. But to like make a video.
There we go.
Let's
begin. Let's begin here. Tell us a little bit about who Michael Sparks is and how did Michael Sparks get here on the Weather Report?
Oh, you asked me to come on the Weather Report. I didn't know anything about it. Like I see you, but I don't know if I've ever listened to it. But yeah, I'm just kind of a international man of mystery, I guess they say. I grew up in a little small town in Ohio, and always thought to myself, how do I get out of Ohio? Growing up in the 80s and that big steel and the manufacturing and all that stuff. It was going down the tubes in the 80s when I tried to find my way out. And So I played in the high school band and played saxophone and played tuba in the marching band. For a lot of people don't know that about me. I played tuba just in the marching band. But a kid ahead of me a year, he joined the Army band. And he came back and played with us on one concert. And I thought, well, man, shit, that's a way to get out of Ohio. I could join the Army band. And so I auditioned, and by the skin of my teeth, I made it. I mean, I really barely made it.
Really? That's I don't downplay that. The Army band, I was in marching band. We did competition stuff too back in the day in high school. And the Army band, this isn't like they accept anybody. You gotta be good.
Well, nowadays it's even worse. I mean, if you don't have a degree, they're not going to take you. They've upped it. You've got to do multiple things. You know, back then you play a saxophone, you're good. That's all you had to do. But now they want you to be able to sing or play sax and guitar, or, you know, all kinds of other instruments. And it's not the way it was when I was in. But yeah, I made it and joined in '88. Was going to make a career out of it. And then we elected Bill Clinton in the 90s, and they drew down the military. So I got out after 8 years, and, you know, just like people get out now, like, what are you going to do when you grow up? I don't know. You know, everybody that I knew back home is blue collar, right? So that's what I was going to do, is go to school to be a machinist or a factory work. My mom's like almost 80. She works in a factory still to this day. So it's like, that's my destiny. But I always thought when I was growing up, I was like, man, I don't want to be 80 years old working. I can't imagine that. Or 60 years old even, you know. There was a guy at this dairy that I used to work at in high school, and he was an older guy, probably my age, maybe right now. And I thought, man, I don't want to be that guy hustling like that in a factory. So I thought, I got to figure something out. I got out of the military. I was going to school, and then I was hanging around all these old sergeant majors at the Anniston Army Depot in Anniston, Alabama, and they'd say, "Man, you need to get back. You already got 8 years. You need to get back in." So I tried to actually get back in. The reason I had to get out was because they wouldn't promote me. I was promotable as an E4, a specialist in the Army, for 6.5 of the 8 years, but I couldn't get promoted because most people that join the Army, they already have college degrees, and the more college you have, the more points you get. And so they just drop down and pick up one. I was on the list, the top 10 on the list, but they would just never it would never drop down to promote enough players in my MOS for me to get promoted. So 6 months after I got out, they promoted everybody on the list. Man, I was pissed. I was like, what the heck? Because my ex-wife she was also active. She was active in the band too. We were dual military. And so I got a slot. I got my audition, get back in the band. We had connections at the military recruiting and whatever. Well, the recruiter back then, they didn't get any benefit for doing prior service. And so they found out that this gal that was helping me get back in was helping me, and they reamed her for it, and they threw my paperwork in the trash. So, me, I contacted the guy in charge of all of recruiting out of Fort Knox, Kentucky. That's the United States Army Recruiting Command. I sent this Command Sergeant Major of USAREC an email, and he was like, "Look, I did 8 years. I got an honorable discharge. I just got, into this situation with the darned drawdown and whatnot." And he made some heads roll down there. And then some major that was above him said, he's basically, this MFer is never going to get in the military. And, I went all the way to get to the MEPS, and they said, "Nope, you're done. We're never going to let you come back in." So I ended up going into the reserves / National Guard. And I finished up there 33 years, which turned out to be better for me anyhow, because it just gave me that opportunity to be an entrepreneur, right? If I would have done active duty for 20 years and, been retired at, like you say, 40, then I probably still would have known not what I wanted to do, where I was like forced. I was like, hey, I got to figure out what I want to do. Well, I was riding my motorcycle in Alabama, and this is, the internet was there, but it's not like it was today, right? You couldn't really search and get in groups of people or get connected like you can now. And I went to a bookstore called Books A Million. I don't know if y'all got that where y'all are at, but it's like It's like a big bookstore. It's they got
like
a coffee, like a Barnes and Noble. Yeah, it's like a Barnes and Noble. Well, I went in there. I'm cruising up and down the aisles, and I was like, I was like, man, I'd like to find like a hobby or something to do, and I got to the business and investing aisle, and I thought, oh, that'd be an awesome hobby, right? Investing, that makes you money, and then business. I said, oh, that's great, and I started reading books, and first book I read, I was in the investing one. There was a guy standing there. I said, well, I've never invested in my life. What do I do? And he says, get this book. It was called The Wall Street Money Machine by Wade Cook. The guy had been to jail like 2 times, and it's all about day trading. And like, if you don't have the stomach for day trading, don't day trade. Well, so I took it home and read it. Like, oh, that'd be kind of fun, and a fun way to lose all your money is what it really is. But then I also picked up a Susie Orman book, 7 Steps to Financial Independence or something like that, and I read the book, and that seemed to suit me more, and it kind of got me down the idea that I wanted to be a financial advisor, stock person, to help people with their money. We had then moved to El Paso, Texas, got stationed out at Fort Bliss, and I said, well, I'm going to take a job as a financial advisor. So I interviewed for this company out there, and they said, you do okay, but they said, you don't have a big enough warm market to burn through before you'd fail, I guess. I don't know. And I said, well, I'm attached to this Fort Bliss military base. There's like 20,000 people over here. That's my warm market. No. Well, at the same time, I was looking for oil for my truck, and that's how I found the AMSOIL, the synthetic oil company, as you see back there. And back there, AMSOIL Drive, right there. You could become a distributor with them. You didn't have to ask permission. You just filled out a form and you gave them like $50, and they's like, oh, you're a dealer now, go out and have fun. And well, I did that. And it's, it's one of those home-based things that, people say is a scam or a pyramid scheme, or, kind of like a Social Security.
We will definitely get into that discussion for sure.
Yeah. So that, and that really got my wheels turning on entrepreneurship and leadership and all that. I just kind of, like I say, the rest is history, So
have you ever been in the corporate world? Did you have a corporate job while doing all of this, or have you always been an entrepreneur with AMSOIL and your financial planning stuff?
Yeah, financial thing. No, well, when we left El Paso, I had already started as an AMSOIL dealer, but it's a long road to hoe to really start making full-time income. I was making income with it, but not full-time. So we went from there to Virginia Beach, Virginia. My wife got stationed out there at Little Creek Naval Amphibious Base as a drill sergeant, and so I got a job at a corporate office, and I got hired as a customer service rep. Well, it was basically making pre-sales calls to these people for sales. Well, there's like 3 sales guys on the whole darn company, and I'd be on a call, and they have questions about buying the product, and these guys are all on another call, and I'm like, well, that's kind of dumb. Let me see if I can sell them. So I started selling them, without even being in sales. They moved me up to a sales position, and so I did that for 2.5 years. And that got me to 2005. We moved back to Tennessee. So we moved around. In 10 years, we moved 6 or 7 times. I mean, it was like every 2 years. Boom, boom, boom.
Sound like Ken.
Yeah. I did that too.
Yeah. So that got me into sales. And then when I got back here we got back here to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, Clarksville, Tennessee, about 50 miles out of Nashville. That company ended up getting sold. And I said, screw it, I'm never going to go back to another W-2 job again. I signed into the guard unit in Nashville, and I did what they call a guard bum for a little while. So whatever they have, whatever thing they can give you active duty time for, you might go do for 2 weeks. You might go do for a week. One day I get paid a whole active duty day. And luckily, luckily Fort Campbell, Kentucky, this is during at the Afghan war, they were all deployed. So they stood up this thing for the guard where they trained you to do military funeral honors like they do at Arlington, right? The taps and the folding of the flag and the firing of the rifles and all that stuff. and it was voluntary. So you could work whatever days you wanted. And I'm like, oh, this is sweet. And I get one active duty day. No matter how long I work, I get 1 day of pay. I was a Staff Sergeant E6. So that was a pretty good amount of money. I mean, it was like $200 a day to, you know, and sometimes I only work, and like I'd have a funeral across the street from where I live. There was a graveyard there. I would go there and, like what I worked like an hour.
So when you were doing that, what were you doing there? Were you playing music or
no? I did all aspects of it. I was team leader. I was folding, presenting, firing party, and being a saxophone player. I can't even pretend to play a brass instrument. It's
a
just
bugle.
A bugle, yeah. So they have these bugles. It looks like it's a real bugle, but it has an insert in it that looks like it's like a microphone. And it's got a pre-recorded taps. So it's got a little volume button and a button to get it to play. Right. And it sounds good when it works. I mean, I've had how many people come up and tell me that's the best taps they've ever heard. But when it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
I'll throw this out for you. My Uncle Buddy Madden, he was the oldest guy to play taps at Arlington Cemetery.
Oh, wow.
Because he served in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And he played the bugle, and taps was one of the things he did. So he did it for 50 some years, doing funerals and stuff. And I think he was 94 years old when he did it at Arlington Cemetery on an actual bugle.
Yeah,
you played it at 94. Incredible.
Yeah. So I did that from 2005 until I retired in 21, and I had over 2,000 funerals that I've done. So
wow. Well, you know what? That's a huge deal for the people at the funeral to have that.
Oh yeah,
that happen there. I mean, those are I've attended a lot of those, and that's always if there's a highlight, there's that honor of people that have served and have that in their funeral, and it's a great thing to do.
Yeah, it's like being it's a performance, right? You got to understand it's a performance, and you're performing for those people, and people get some of these people that are from the infantry or whatever, they don't understand that you ain't playing the band. It's like, well, they're not going to notice if you didn't do it exactly right. But if you make it where it looks like you screwed it up, then they're going to know, right? So you got to, like when you miss a note and you're playing and you get all flustered, well, then that's not, they're going to know you screwed it up. But if you just did it on purpose, they're not going to know, right? So
you just keep going.
Just keep going. That's right.
That's Bruce about that. He misses notes all the time.
He just keep going.
He misses notes on a 4-beat count off.
You just keep going. They never know.
Yeah.
And I'm a drummer. Every note's a missed note.
Yeah. So it was fun time.
Yeah. So when you got into this quote entrepreneur sphere that we're all into now, and especially, one that has to go full time with this, what were some scary moments that you had to start out with? Because there had to be at first, you're like going like, God, how am I going to make a car? How am I going to keep the roof over my head? How am I going to keep the lights on? How am I going to keep food in my stomach? All those questions have to be answered when you dive into, I never want another W-2 job.
Yeah. Well, again, and then I think a lot of people in the space, they don't, because I know a lot of people. It's like, well, yeah, I'm doing this full-time entrepreneur. Yeah, but your husband makes $300,000 a year, or something like that, right? So. When I got back here on 5, 3 months later, that's when my wife asked for a divorce. So she was still active duty. So I had a sugar mama that was, I could do this however I wanted. I had to get really serious. And in 05 and you're like, oh, okay, and that's when the National Guard, the funeral honors thing kind of spun up at the same time. So it gave me a little bit of breathing room, a little bit of time to build the business, and it allowed me to have a little security while I'm building, even though I'm, very much part-time in the National Guard. I'm making, part-time, I'm making like $25,000, $30,000 a year part-time. So, some people don't make that full-time. I don't know what that means, but being able to do the military thing and then come home and work on the business, that gave me what I needed to be able to, build the AMSOIL business up. So
I've got some questions on the AMSOIL. So I'm very familiar with the AMSOIL. It's a great product. For you gun advocates out there, AMSOIL makes the best gun cleaning and gun oil out there, period, end of story, done. It's the best stuff anyway. But like you said, people say it's a pyramid scheme or whatever, there's like that. And I actually looked in at one point at selling AMSOIL. The margins when you come right in the beginning aren't great. And I think that's by design, of course, because most people come in and then do it. Once you run out of friends and family, you can't do it anymore. You were able to take it to the next level. And my wife, as a stay-at-home mom, had tried about every kind of pyramid.
Let's call it network marketing. It's not really.
We call it direct marketing. Me and John call it direct marketing.
Well, what I'm saying is, pyramid scheme has a bad connotation, but really, it's it's an accurate. The scheme part of it is the problem. It's the pyramid you need. You need to build people to have under you to keep selling the stuff, and she sold Tupperware and the toy one, all the spices one. She did all of them, and all of these places had people that were doing really, really well in it. And I said, look at all these people that are doing well. Do what they're doing. They're making it a full-time job. They're making it a career. Mm-hmm. You have to have a network. You have to network out there and do it. You figured out how to do it. In AMSOIL, you want to talk about a niche market. I mean, Tupperware, it's easy. Everyone can buy Tupperware, but you're talking about $10, $12, $15 a quart, oil products for cars and whatever, and all kinds of different lubricants. It's great stuff. They make a high quality product, which makes it easier for you. But how did you take it from how'd you get past the you're nuts phase when people said you're nuts?
And there are, and I'm always comparing, and for whatever the good Lord sent me to AMSOIL, and I got into the right team, the right leadership. And when I first found out about it, I had gotten an Amway presentation in the early 90s, like 92. Mm-hmm. I'm like, he's drawing the circles like the pyramid. I'm like, this is a scam. I'm never going to do this. He was in the band with me. Jim Caldwell's his name, trumpet player. And I was like, no, Jim, but I'll buy some stuff from him. So I remember we used to buy their popcorn. It was really good. But Amway has phenomenal products. They're great products. They really have great products. They used to have a water filtration system. Their vitamins and stuff are really good. I'm not a member. I'm not pushing somebody down Amway. There's a lot of Amway distributors out there. But so I said I'd never do it. So I was biased to begin with. Well, when I learned about AMSOIL, they're one of the most unique home-based business companies because they have they not only have where you can buy the product and sell it, and then recruit somebody and help them learn how to sell it, but they have a different division. It's called the commercial program and the retail on the shelf program. Well, the guy that I got under, he was out of Dallas, Texas. He was kookier than a $3 bill, but he had some sayings that stuck with me, and he's like, work the commercial retail because that's where the money's at. And AMSOIL used to have it in their magazine, in their training. They said, sell for today and for today's income and sponsor for tomorrow's income. So in El Paso, Texas, there was no places carrying AMSOIL at all when I signed up. And I went around, I had 25 or 30 places that were actually selling it on the shelf. I still have my original account that I signed up, little motorcycle shop on Dyer Avenue, 3 miles from my house. They're still an account with me 25 years later. They still buy products from me. So I went to that B2B, and that's what allowed me to know that it wasn't like Amway where I just had to sell to friends and family. I'm like, I'm going to treat this business to business and be like a business owner as opposed to just like a part-time selling to friends and family type thing, So, I mean, there's very few that are out there that I've run across that you can go out and, work it to business. So that kind of was what allowed me to have the confidence to say, yeah, I'm going to go do this as a business. And now, I mean, I literally got hundreds of retail places, and being a car guy, right? Or anytime I got a guy down the road and he's got a business, and if I need car work done, he's a mechanic. We work together and he gives me good deals. I go get my tires rotated. I bring in a dozen donuts and, you don't have to pay me for that. Huh? What's that?
I happen to have this elixir that if you like it.
But, circling back around, when I joined AMSOIL, I still had that financial thing in my back of my mind. So that was always just like, I wanted to do that. I never got to do that. And that's kind of, we'll fast forward and talk about that when we get to that. But that, just remember that allowed me to, hey, good. Avon's good products. I know a lot of people that were in that. So was Bruce.
I was an Avon consumer. I've got, remember the Avon? They're up here on my count. I can't go.
Little cars with the cologne in it.
Yeah, I've got about 40 of them. I collected them.
Oh wow, wow!
Don't ever smell the cologne.
Oh, it's not good at all. No,
it's awful. It's like slow gin and mayonnaise. It's not a good cologne. Not exactly a chick magnet. I prefer WD-40 if I'm going to go out, chasing women.
Or AMSOIL gun lube.
AMSOIL gun lube.
The cleaner, the MP.
That in fact is the
MP. That's the stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Excellent.
It's very interesting about the business model that AMSOIL has. Plexus Worldwide has a similar model. If I really wanted to go out there and do the commercial thing and stuff like that, I could. But there ain't no vitamin shops in California. Be surprised if there's no vitamin shops in California anymore because it's just all.
They're all pot shops now. They all the GNC is closed down, and now they're selling the weed.
Yeah, we got CBDs now.
They're selling the weed to the new Americans.
Yeah. So, and it can be frustrating. I mean, it just like any business, right? It can be frustrating. You're out there just, run into and you're just like, this business is so good. Why aren't you doing it? And they don't.
Yeah, it's hard to push people into. Well, we'll get. Hopefully, we'll get to the subject, but it's hard to get people to grasp having the freedom of doing things on their own and being completely responsible for what happens with their business, where they can go to a cushy job every day, sit behind a desk and collect their paycheck every week and be semi-comfortable with the fact that they're still going to have a job, the next week and the next week or the next year and whatever, and like at 65, I'm at the end of my career. So it's just like, if they fold, it's just like, okay, bye, I'm done.
And you got to read enough books too. And people don't read these days. And a lot of people consume audio, which is good, but I couldn't tell you how many Jim Rohn tapes I wore out in my vehicle. What do they call it? Automobile University, and if you're driving around listening to the crappy music and, making those people richer than they already are. And with all their political crap, I don't even know if radio works on my car. I'm either talking on the phone to somebody, listening to a podcast, or, now we got Audible. So if I buy it once, I can listen to it 100 times. I can do it. But Jim Rohn was probably my favorite. And then I've read a lot of books on network marketing, multi-level marketing, franchising, and the people that made it big, the people that are doing it. And if you surround yourself with those people, that's going to keep you going, right? So if you're going to surround yourself with people that are not even just in your own industry, I get invited to other network marketing things, and man, I go and I sit in the front seat and I'm taking notes. I'm like, oh, this is good stuff. I'm going to use it with me. I went to an Amway presentation. Now it was probably 10 years ago, and there's a lady that was a heart surgeon at Vanderbilt that's in Amway. I'm like, so how would I was like, yeah, I took notes from her, and then
all of the multi-level marketing that you've heard of, that people have heard of, Pampered Chef and Discovery Toys and all of those ones, they work because there's a few people. It's the 80-20 rule. 20% of the people are going to actually put into it what you need to get out of it, and that's what you're talking about is gathering commercial people. You looked at it and said, okay, I can make more money selling commercially to business than I can to person to person. We'll still keep the person to person stuff, of course. And I'm sure you have clients that you've had for years that order a case of oil or whatever from you, every 6 months, no matter what. But to make the actual money at it, you have to put the time in and the energy, and you have to have the foresight to do it. And that's where most people fail within 6 to 8 weeks. They're just like, I'm not doing it anymore. I don't want to have another party. I don't know who's going to come. And it's like, you got to get other people. You have to network. You have to do all of these things. That's the multi-level part. That's why I don't think it's a scam, but the people run out of drive. And that isn't a scam. People run out of drive. The business model on a lot of these places, and I don't think AMSOIL is this way, but the business model is we're going to get the person when they first get in there for the first month and a half to buy a bunch of stuff. So they have something to show, give away, and do all that kind of things at a huge discount. They'll love it. But I know what it costs to manufacture things. That's what I do for a living. And the discount prices, where you are making plenty of money on those discount prices. Trust me.
Yeah. I think one of the things that keeps me going is that I've gone past beyond the warm sales or the hot sales. I've gone through the family, I've gone through the friends, and now I'm not actively recruiting through them. But I mean, whenever somebody wants to talk about it or somebody wants to sample or whatever, I don't have anything on my shelves. But I mean, for the same pack, we do direct shipping from whatever we sell. So that's a good part of the company that I represent.
So you guys drop ship. So
we drop ship.
Does AMSOIL do that as well?
I think yeah. So right when I joined, the only way to get it at a wholesale price is you had to become a dealer, and that just turned a lot of people off. Well, back in 2000, like 3 months, they came out with what they call the preferred customer program, and it works like a Sam's Club membership. You pay your $20. You're not a dealer. You're not selling it. You're buying it direct. It's coming to your door. And I'm just the middleman. I'm just getting paid on it, So I almost feel I don't feel bad when I cash the checks, but I kind of feel bad that for some people that have to work really hard, I didn't have to really work hard for that, So I've got a good mix. I got a good mix of personal customers. I got a good mix of commercial business, and then my biggest one is the retail. I've got motorcycle shops and car dealerships and you name it. I've got hundreds of those. Oh, and my kooky guy, he used to say, bring me back that around. He used to say, if you got 100 accounts doing $100 a week, that's $10,000 a week. You're going to make 20% on that. That's $2,000 a week. And he's like, there's 52 weeks in a year. That's $104,000. Well, $2,000, $100,000 was a lot of money. A lot of money back then. Well, 100,000 isn't so much a lot of money. It's still quite a bit, but not nearly what it was back in 2000. So I never got to it at that point, right? But I always just would keep saying that. One person that was talking about, the recruiting part, I make it nonchalant. I just mention it. If you want it, great. I'm not one of those I tell you, I'm the worst salesperson there is, man. You either buy it or you don't. I don't either want to join or you don't. I don't, I'm at this point now. I don't have to get desperate. I don't drive across town for 2 quarts of oil anymore to give it to somebody, like, no, I'm not going to do that. So,
but, so let's switch gears now and talk about financial planning and your financial interests and helping people out with infinite banking. Now, I've heard you before on other podcasts. I think you did. I'm not sure. Did you do Jason Stapleton? I don't remember.
I don't think. No, I never did get on Jason.
I've heard somebody come in and talk about infinite banking before.
Yeah,
and it's a very interesting subject. It really is. I mean, it intrigues me. So why don't you give us an insight on how you got into it, why you're into it, and what can it do for you?
Well, let's step back one time with Bruce, not to explain what infinite banking is, because we hear it said a lot and no one ever explains what it is.
We'll get to that. Let's so this is a concept, and it was written by a gentleman named Nelson Nash, and there's a book called Becoming Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash, right? So it's like the political climate today. There's people that hate it. It's like Democrats and Republicans. It really is. So I don't tell people, I'm not a typical financial planner. I don't have a license to lose people's money. That's what I tell them. And I'm not gonna. It's becoming your own banker, not me, the banker for you. Tell you how to. You have to have the desire to want to change the way you're doing things that weren't working before, that maybe will work better for you this way. So I went through the 08. Everybody here is old enough to have gone through the 2008 crisis, right?
Yep.
And that got me down the rabbit hole of money creation and why is, and how dollars are created. And then that got me down the Ron Paul revolution. Anybody else remember that? And the Fed, what are we all talking about now, right? And the Fed, we've been saying that back in 2008 and then 2012. Well, I started studying money, Creature from Jekyll Island, learned about being libertarian. I learned about, the IRS, the Federal Reserve. I'm kind of representing here today, right? So it took me 5 years to discover this idea of becoming your own banker through the economics, for the economic side of it. So I came at it through economics, even though I've always had this interest in finance and success and all that. I'm more of the economics side of it for people. So yeah, that's one of them. 4th edition. I think this is the 5th edition. Yeah. So I got introduced. Check this out. So I went to one of the biggest network marketing trainers there is. His name is Eric Worre, and he was up in Minnesota, outside of Twin Cities. What's that big lake where all the rich people live at?
Minnetonka.
Yeah. So he had a training how to get his how to like 100 extra business in 90 days or something like that. And we went to his first training that he ever did for it. And so we're up there, and there's network marketers from all over the country. It was like, I learned about 120 people. And so I met this guy we did a little boat ride after the thing was over on Minnetonka. And we got talking, got into political discussions or economics or something. I don't know, but he put a little pin in a little thing in his brain, like, I'm going to remember that. Well, then the next year, that was 2012, 2013, he calls me up, and he was with USANA. That was who he was with, USANA. And so he's coming to Nashville. And I said, well, I'm coming to Nashville. Would like to grab coffee. And I'm like, is this kind of trying to recruit me or something? I'm already in, more companies than I need to be in anyhow. But I said, well, what are you coming to Nashville for? He says, well, I'm coming to this thing. It's called the Night of Clarity. And the Night of Clarity, I knew about it because Ron Paul was the speaker at the event in Nashville. Like, I'm 50 miles from Nashville, but I'm not going to go pay money just to see Ron Paul. I didn't know what it was about at all. He says, well, I didn't tell you the truth. He's like, I also do this other thing, and it's called Infinite Banking, Become Your Own Banker. And I'm like, how do you do that? Right? How's that work? And he says, well, you got to read the book, So he sends the book like 2 weeks before. I'm reading the book. I mean, it's only 90 pages, but I read it and I'm like, oh man, this is either too good to be true, a scam, or it works. I had my wife read the book. So she read the book and she's like, yeah, some of this makes sense, but some of it, I don't know. So I ended up saying, well, if we're going to put our money into this, I want to go to this event as a 2.5 day event, Friday nights when Ron Paul spoke, and then Saturday and Sunday, where they talked. Ron Paul said what the problem was, and the infinite banking people said what the solution was, is by pulling your money out of the commercial banking system, they cannot fractionalize those dollars, right? If you have it in, so it uses a whole life insurance company is where you put the money in, then it can't be fractionalized. And then, so when you want to when you want to buy something, instead of taking a loan, you take a loan from the company, from the life insurance company. All the while, your money is still in there compounding. So you got each dollar is doing multiple jobs. And the companies that we use are mutually owned, which means everybody that has a policy is also an owner in the company. So when the company's profitable, which they all are because they're very conservative, they have to distribute those excess profits back to the policy owners in the form of a dividend. A dividend is not taxable. And once a dividend is declared and paid out, that can't be taken away. So it's uninterrupted compounding interest, right? Whereas the stock market, it goes up and it goes down, up and down. Well, this here, it compounds up the whole entire time, right? So you never lose that power of compounding, even though you're using those dollars. Technically, you're taking a loan from the life insurance company. They're charging you interest, but when you pay yourself back, you get to recapture that interest. If that makes any sense.
So when you're talking, and I don't want to jump too far forward with this, but every time that I've heard of infinite banking and they start talking about, quote, whole life, to me, that's always been that buzzword that goes like, this is a scam.
Yeah. Dave Ramsey hates it, right? This is terrible. Right. This is right. You can, but they never, he always say, buy term and invest the difference. That's the whole mantra of the people that do the Dave Ramsey thing, or it's started with another network marketing company, A.L. Williams. If you're old, you're probably not old enough to remember that. But that became Prime America. So there's a book out there called the A.L. Williams story. And what happened was back in the back before the stock market, before like the 80s, 70s, and 80s, everybody invested or didn't invest. Everybody kept their money in life insurance companies, right? And so A.L. Williams, his father had a whole life insurance policy that didn't have enough cash value or didn't have enough when he died, and it left his mother destitute. He says, well, for the same dollars, he could have bought 10 times the amount of term insurance, and my mom wouldn't have had to been, destitute because he didn't buy enough life insurance. So that's where he came up. And he says, if he would have bought, the same death benefit and then invested that difference, he'd have all these millions of dollars, looking back on the stock market. Right. Well, may or may not. Right. We saw 2008 happen, and how many people, lost 50% of it. I'm a millionaire. Yeah. No, now I'm only 500,000 here. I can't retire for another 10 years, or however long it took to get it back. So that's kind of why they hate it. They think that you could buy term and invest the difference, but nobody's ever pointed out that you finance everything you buy. You either pay interest to somebody else or you give up the ability to earn interest. There can be no other way unless you can print it. Well, and that's illegal unless you're the government. So, Dave Ramsey and Dave Ramsey never says, well, buy whole life and invest the cash value, because that's what I do. So now if I do die, my wife still gets, big old death benefit, but I'm still compounding my money in other investments, right? So because they say it doesn't grow very fast. It's 3-4%. Well, it's, it's 400% more than the bank's paying you to save your money. And how much death benefit does your savings account give you? Right. Dave Ramsey talks about you should have an emergency fund, right? 3 to 6 months. I don't know anybody that went through 2020, 2021. Some people didn't work for a year and a half, right? They had to wear a diaper on their face and couldn't leave their house. So, if you think 3 to 6 months is going to get you anywhere, it's not. I always say, the size of your emergency fund is a direct correlation to what constitutes an emergency.
Yes.
Yeah, I get a whopping 0.01% on my savings account. So
my USA, they credit me a penny, and they just I don't know if they do it to piss me off or what. I got like $4,000 or $5,000 sitting in there. And it's like
it costs more in computing power.
It's one of the only things that's not great about the Trump administration. And in general, I'm not a huge Trump guy, but I'm not anti-Trump either. I judge him by what he's doing, which right now is pretty good, except for some of my my savings and equity and things are guns, and those values have not grown right now because of he. So we need if Kamala was in there or we get Tim Walz, they're going up, but this is the only thing downer of Trump is that my guns aren't appreciating anymore. And I wish he'd do something about that.
Yeah, we should. Yeah. Keep buying more guns though. That's the beauty. It's like Bitcoin's on sale. Yeah, keep buying, it's just, I think it's the first year I didn't get something for my birthday. I try to buy one a year, and it's like, this person I'm 55 years old. I've probably been buying guns since I'm 21, one a year. That ain't like crazy.
That's a start.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. That's just a start. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Bruce doesn't know that he's out in California.
Yeah. No.
They don't have guns out there.
What part of California are you in, Bruce?
Gilroy, California. Gilroy.
Where?
Which I'm in Central Coast. Central Coast. Gilroy. Okay. Yeah. I'm just below San Jose, California.
I've got friends in there from the state of Jefferson up there. You know where that's at?
Yeah. State of Jefferson. Way up north. Yeah. I dream about living up there, but you can't get insurance or anything up there because everything burns down. So
yeah. They had a big fire where he's from. I can't remember the town, but Kidder Creek.
Yeah.
There was a big fire last year, and he was all bent out of shape because they took him extra days to do the fire breaks and all that stuff. And I'm like,
it's crazy up there. California's a crazy state, but anyway. So
just as a sidebar, quick, I don't know why California doesn't build more brick houses. They're mighty, and you can just let them all hang out.
Yeah. Well, I researched
no money in it.
numerous years ago. It's called monolithic domes, and they're made out of sprayed concrete.
Yeah.
And if you go to the Monolithic Dome Institute, they'll show one where a fire went and the firefighters got trapped, and they called and they said, well, go inside this guy's house. You will be safe. And the fire went over and it basically scorched the outside a little bit. I mean, it's like fire. I still have the survival magazine from like 1990 something. And it was saying, and it was showing them shooting a 30-06 at the side of this house. And it's like, it can take a bullet and it can't get through it. I mean, it's 2 inches of concrete. And I thought, man, I want to get that. Well, my wife and I went to Texas a couple years ago, and we went to the Monolithic Dome Institute where they show you how to make them. We were going to make our own, and she's like, this is like living in a cave. It's like, because the sides are all sloped down, and she's like, I don't think I could do it. I don't think we could do it. And then getting insurance on it, and then getting a loan for somebody to build it, you'd have to build it for cash, So we ended up building a barn dominium, which is still pretty good. Exterior is all steel. There's nothing on the outside, Now, if I got through the outside, it would catch on fire because the inside would,
As a bonus, if you drive crappy cars, which I do, and have an all steel house, all of the Rock Auto decals, the magnets that they give you can stick right on the house.
Stick them on the house.
Tile your house. You could do siding in your house with Rock Auto.
I've got a wall. That's the Rock Auto wall.
Nice.
So moving forward, Michael, with infinite banking, what can infinite banking do for the regular guy? I don't want to talk about me, but probably somebody around Jason's age. Maybe Ken's young enough to start. I don't know how
you're young enough to start. If you're insurable, you're young enough to start.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done people in their 70s before.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. We've transitioned. So when you look at traditional financial plans, right? The standard is 60-40, 60% stocks, 40% bonds. And as you get older, you're supposed to kind of flip that. Right. When you get into because you don't want your stocks to crash when you got to rely on them for living, so you start 60-40, and then as you get older, you supposed to go to, I don't know how many financial advisors do this, but that's what the gold standard is. 50-50, and then you finally get to 60% bonds and 40% stocks. Well, we just say, take your bond portion and put it into the life insurance, the infinite banking life insurance. And because that's really what they invest in. They're masters of investing in long-term bonds, and bond funds are terrible. If you know anything about those, when interest rates go down, the price of the bond goes up. When interest rates go up, the value of the bond goes down. So they're like both, they're terrible on both sides of it, right? So in this, they're managing basically your bond portfolio for you. That's really all it's doing, and if you start, at 65, you got another 30 years to live, maybe 75, 85, 90. I mean, you really could live 95. I mean, 105. I mean, some of the stuff I'm looking at, some of these people think we're going to live to 140 that I follow. That people the technology is going to be.
Social Security thinks you're going to live to 140. Some of us are going to live till 300. 300. So
300. Yeah, it tells you that, right? No, so
that's what Elon said.
Yeah, so don't discount that. And then what they really say in the book, what the book is designed for, it's not advanced. He wrote the book for the all-American man. That's a wife and 2 kids, and make it, and what he deduced was that 34.5% of every dollar that you earn is going to pay interest. And you're like, well, my credit card's not 35%. And you look at your auto loan, and that's like 7% or whatever. And whenever it's like, well, the percentage, the interest rate is different than the volume of interest, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Interest rate. So if the book is great because he equates it to things that you can relate to. He's like, well, if you get a shot, and he's like, well, the rate that they injected in you doesn't matter. The interest rate, he says, the volume. He says too much could kill you, and not enough doesn't do anything, right? So he's like, you want to look at the volume, and everybody that has ever had a mortgage. And you go and buy, if you haven't had a mortgage, you can pull up a mortgage calculator. That first mortgage payment that you make is 95% interest.
Interest, yep.
Yep.
It takes 15 years before they equal. where if you have
Taking their interest
$1,000, you're paying a 500 in interest and 500, and you might only have a 3 or 4% interest rate. And they say by the time you pay off this house in 30 years, you buy a $100,000 house, you've paid $250,000 for it.
Right.
So that's what he's trying to get at is it's the volume. 34.5 cents of every dollar goes to service debt. And if you could recapture that by saving, so when you go buy a car, and he explains in the book on buying cars. So this is what it's really designed for is the banking part of it, not investing. It's for movement of money in your personal economy. So everybody's going to buy cars, right? So everybody buys a car. There's 3 ways to buy a car. You can, what Dave Ramsey says, you can lease it, right? And you never own it. You're just renting the car. You can take a loan from a financial company, right? So you pay interest to them, or you can save up the money and pay cash, which is just another form of financing, except for you're self-financing it, because you still got to reload your bucket to buy the next car in 4 or 5 or 10 years, however long you keep your car. So you just gives you a little bit more control, but you still are financing it. You're just financing through your own system. Well, there's a 4th way. What if you save up your money in your life insurance company? You take a loan from the life insurance company, you pay yourself back the interest, all the while that money that you have in there is still compounding for you. So then you own the car, you have all the interest you paid for the car, and all the money back into your system. And you just do that over and over. And he equates it to a gal that used CDs to buy her car. There's twin sisters. One used the CD method, which is she saved her money up in CDs. She bought this $10,000 car, and then she started buying more CDs for the next car that she bought every 4 or 5 years or whatever it is in the book. And then the life insurance sister, well, the first car they bought, the life insurance sister is behind. She's like, wait, because she had to pay for the banking system to get started. So there's an upfront cost.
Mm-hmm.
That's, just like and he puts it in the book too. He's like, well, for the bank to be able to loan you the money, they had to put up the upfront cost. They had to put a $20 million to get it going. They had to find the building. They had to pay all the employees, all this before they could even open their doors, right? You don't see that because that bank that's already been happening long before you ever step foot in the bank. So you pay this upfront cost. You said by the 3rd or 4th car you're buying, the life insurance sister is so far ahead of the CD sister, and it just keeps walking away further and further and further. And it says at the end, when they both turn 65, the CD sister has like $250,000, and she runs out of money in 5 years. Taking $50,000 a year of income. The life insurance sister takes $50,000, and her policy keeps growing, and she never runs out of money. Just from financing cars.
Right.
So that's the whole concept of what it's for. And people try to make it into like an investment, or they're trying to do it for real estate investing, or you can use it for anything. There's no limit. You have guaranteed access to that cash value. No matter what, you're the first person on the list. If you don't want to use it, then they'll put it to work somewhere else.
So when you're talking about putting your investments in, say that percentage that you have in bonds, and how long is it before you accumulate enough principal to be able to start doing any type of banking with yourself? I mean,
well, so what happened is once he wrote the book, now he has had policies, he's passed on now, but he had policies since like the 1950s. And so he had those a long time. And that's the old, what they just call standard or ordinary life, whole life. And it took like 20 years before you had any kind of appreciable cash value. Well, nowadays they have riders that you can get at the insurance companies that allow you to stuff more cash in up front. So you minimize the death benefit, maximize the cash value. Like first year, I got a chiropractor. He put in $50,000 the first year into his policy, and he had $43,000 available. He took that, borrowed against that policy the first year, and paid off his credit card, and his business credit card that he used to start up his chiropractic business. And then he had the business pay him what he was paying the credit card company as form of a repayment. So the credit card, so his business could then take that interest and write it off. He took that as interest income, which he didn't have to pay SSI on it or self-employment tax, right? That's what they call it if you're self-employed. So he gets to take that without, it's still income. So he had to pay income tax on it, but he don't have to pay the self-employment, which is 15 something percent, right?
Right.
15 and a half or whatever. So
I've got a scenario to put in front of you, because we'll go back to cars, me being a car fanatic, of course. The fifth way to buy cars is the way I've been doing it, where you pay with cash, but and this is where you have to know something about cars. You buy cars that they've reached the bottom of their value and they're only going up. And I'm not talking classics. I'm not talking things like a 70 Chevelle. I'm talking about what I'm doing now I'm buying mid-90s Panther platform, Mercury Marquis, Ford Crown Vics, town cars. Those have hit the bottom of their value. They start to turn and come up. I was doing it for a while with Buick Roadmasters. The Buick Roadmaster was another one. Yeah, that you could buy a Buick Roadmaster wagon for $1,600 or $1,700. That was a very dependable automobile. Got good gas mileage. It was great. Now that same car is $12,000. So I just kept working through that, right. And now I'm onto these Panther platforms. So now what you're talking about, I look at as an opportunity. Okay, so I get into this program. I borrow money against myself to buy
against your policy.
Against my policy, to buy cars that I know are going up in value. And again, you have to know they're going up in value. So that's the caveat there. This isn't for everybody. But that would be a great way, because I won't borrow money to buy a new car, but I would borrow money to buy an old car that's appreciating. I don't want to pay interest on a depreciating asset. I have no car loans. I haven't had a car loan since 2005. I will never do it again. Yeah. You're throwing money away. But you have to know about cars to do that. You can't just
and like me, I bought an 06 Ford Power Stroke last year. I mean, it was a Lariat model, which is like their one below Platinum,
right.
But you could tell it was an older truck, and it was $15,000. Yeah. I don't know what it was new. It probably wasn't over 30 too much, maybe 35 or so, but now they're 90. They're like 90 for that truck.
Exactly. Last June, I bought a 2000. My wife wanted we wanted another big vehicle to go traveling around. I said, let's get something to pull a trailer. So we found a 2004 Suburban in Arizona, completely rust free, which is the number one problem.
You have
old Suburbans. You can go 400,000 miles on those trucks, no problem. But so we found the one we wanted. It was good. It was clean. Everything had been redone. It was a great truck. $7,000. A new Suburban is $80,000 to $100,000.
Oh yeah.
And this Suburban, because it's so clean, it's 20 years old. It's reached the bottom of its value. Yeah. If you look at the 90 ones, that like if it was a 94 in the same condition, those are going up in value. So this thing, if we just keep it nice, I mean, we paid cash for it, and we got it shipped up here. I had to do some repairs on it. You're always going to do repairs on old cars. That's the caveat. People are like, oh, you're going to spend all your time and money doing. Not if you choose the right cars. You pick the wrong cars. I mean, you get any Cadillac with a North Star engine, you're going to be way upside down in the thing. No problem. But you get Chevy trucks, the Buick Roadmasters, the Chevy Caprices, the stuff that America is good at. Anything with the 3800 Series 2 motor in it, you can do good on it. And those cars. Hey, those Mercuries and Ford Crown Vics. I mean, how many millions of state troopers and police? Exactly. I mean, those are durable cars. I mean, and they, like you said, they get like 28 miles a gallon. They make good power. They got 4.6 in them. And 4.6.
That's a good motor. I've got the 5.4 in my F-150, and it runs good. I have no trouble with it. So.
Right, but again,
you got to be a car person, because when it does start screwing up, you're going to be paying for it. If you can't do it yourself, you
if you decide, and that's the other thing. Are parts plentiful? Are parts available? For those cars, they made from 1979 to 2011. They made the Panther flat platform.
Wow.
They had some changes along the way, but from 1979 till the last Lincoln Town Car rolled off the production line in 2011, it was basically the same car.
Yeah.
And so parts are accessible, and it was the last of the big rear wheel drive cars. Now that's not for everybody, and it is for me because I like big boats. But there's other cars, we also have a Subaru, and it's another one that'll run forever, but there's problems with them, head gaskets. So guess what I figured out how to do? I figured out how to pull the motor out and put head gaskets in, because I thought these are great cars we're up in Wisconsin, the snow and stuff like that gets good gas mileage. It's great in the snow. This is an excellent, if I can just figure out, so this first one I'm going to lose my ass on, but the next one I won't, because now I know what I need to do. So the next one I can go in there to the ads that they say, oh, it needs head gaskets. You can buy the car for $1,500 because the head gasket job's a $3,500 job. I can do it for $700 in a weekend.
Yeah.
It's worth doing, but you have to be willing to put that time and effort in. So there's no such thing as a free, kind of a free deal. So buying a depreciating asset, if you're borrowing against your policy, and then you end up getting that interest back, is a great idea. I think there's a lot. There's a lot.
But there's something to be said for that new car smell.
Well, here, my son, he's 20. He'll be 23 here in a week. He just bought a brand new SR86 Toyota, brand new. And I told him it was nuts. I'm like, you're nuts, but I understand you want to have the car you want to have. It's great. But I went and looked at it, and we sat in there. I'm like, new car smell. New car smell. Yeah, it is.
And all the toys and the nose squeaks and but then you get I'm like this close. I'm like, because my 08, I bought my 08 F-150 on January of 09, which is the height of the financial crisis.
Right.
It was like $38,000 truck. I paid $23,000 for
Right.
it.
I remember that.
I mean, it's still worth it's still probably worth half of what I paid for it, and it's like a 15-year-old or 17-year-old truck. And there's nothing wrong with it, but I need a 3/4 ton for some of the stuff we're doing out here on the farm. So I got that Power Stroke, which it's been in the shop a lot. I'm like, God, if I sell both of them and I buy it, if I keep it as long as I kept the F1 that I've had the F-150, I'll be 70 damn years old. Think I'll give a shit? If I keep, because I'm not an every 3 or 4 year guy. I research what I want and I keep it until the wheels almost fall off. My daughter, I don't know, I didn't train her to do this, but she's driving our old Altima. She bought it from the family bank back in 2012 or 2013, maybe 2014, and she's still driving it. It's a 09 Altima with almost 200,000 miles on it. She's like, why do I want to have a car payment? And I'm like, exactly. 32 years old, owns her own home, lives alone, and has a job, has a big old infinite banking policy because dad told her what she was going to do with her money when she graduated college. And some of these things about finance, I got to live personally, right? So we had saved for college for her, and not the 529 plan, that's the government plan, but we bought what they call a Uniform Gift to Minors Act, UGMA, and it separates those dollars from your personal income, so you don't pay. It grows in her name, but she can't touch it until she turns 18. Well, this is the lost decade for the S&P 500. So I invested in the Vanguard S&P 500, which is the lowest cost. You get all the dividends. S&P's, that's what everybody's trying to beat. Well, that was it. That was the 10 years when I put the money in, is when the S&P went nowhere for 10 years. And we put like $5,000 or 43 or something like that. It was like $6,000 by the time she went to college. I mean, it was totally terrible. So she got the Hope Scholarship for Tennessee, which is the lottery, all the lottery people paying for her college, all the poor lottery ticket buyers. And then she graduated with no debt. She went on and got her master's in doing a grad student or graduate assistant. So she got her master's, no debt, and she had $5,000 left over. And I said, well, we need to put this in a policy. So I got her a policy the first year, $5,000 a year, and she's been paying $5,000 a year, and at the time it was like 20% of her income. She didn't know any different, I said, well, how much you need to live on? And I scammed her on her house. We sold her house in town. So I bought the house in 07 and lived in it until we built out here in the country. We're on 30 acres and we do like the homesteadery thing and got chickens and ducks, and we did sheep a couple years, but I said, in order to not pay capital gains, you have had to live in it 2 out of 5 years. So she rented it from us for 3 years. I said, hey, baby, you're going to have to figure out something to do because the 3rd year is coming up. I'm going to sell this thing and get cap gain free. You know, I don't have to pay cap gain on it. And so she looked at apartments, and apartments were crap for around there. And we started, well, maybe buy a house. So it's like we determined like $150,000 house for her. All $150,000 houses, I don't have enough guns to protect it. And she's only got 1 or 2. So it was like, you're not living on that part of town. So the guy that mentored me in infinite banking, he says, well, why don't you have her make an offer on the house? I was going to sell it for 160. He says, have her offer 185 for the house. You're like, what? You're going to sell the house to your child like $30,000 more than what it's actually worth? And then he said, what you do is you give her a gift of equity, and then you get your $30,000 that you would have got anyhow. And she's only financing 150, which is what she was looking for in the first place. So she gets a better house. She's still doing the 150 that she planned on. And I got my $30,000, like win-win-win, you know? And so when I had one of my buddies of real estate, he's actually one of my infinite banking clients. I said, could you just help us with the paperwork and inspections and all that stuff? And so he had the appraiser go out to it, and the highest house was like 160 in that neighborhood. All the comps were like, he says, man, I looked all over, and he says the best I could do is 184.5. He's like, why are they paying that much more for it? And it's like, I don't know, my real estate guy said, I don't know, he didn't know. So we got her to get it for 184.5, and it worked out. And her payments, cool. And she's got 2.5%. This is like 2019. She's at 2.5%, and her payment's like $700 a month. You can't rent anywhere in Clarksville for $70. You couldn't even a flea bag hotel. You couldn't rent for that, And
she's paying herself, right?
And she's paying herself, yeah.
That's
fantastic. So we got her in a pretty good position, a good side of town. I mean, it's the place where you probably still want to lock your doors, but I can tell you probably plenty of days I forgot to lock my door. I'm bad about that, really bad. But anyhow,
Michael, do you have a little bit more time? We'd love to have you on.
Yeah, I just text my wife. I said I had the nap today, and so this juices me up. I'm usually ready for bed about 8:30, 9 o'clock, but I could probably go a little bit longer, another hour.
Cool.
Or whatever.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and put up your website, Dynasty Wealth Partners, and on the other side, we'll get into your company. We'll get into Dynasty Wealth Partners and talk a little more about infinite banking, because I'm extremely curious about this, especially when you said you're never too old. And I got questions. I'm sure everybody else that is watching this podcast has questions also. So I want to thank you for being here and doing this first hour with us. We're looking forward to some bonus content with you. And go ahead and plug yourself before we leave.
Michael Sparks. I'm kind of a jack of all trades, but the main 2 incomes that I have is I'm an independent AMSOIL distributor. It's an American company based in Superior, Wisconsin. We sell the best synthetic lubricants. And then I started a company, Dynasty Wealth Partners, which is we focus on teaching people how to become their own banker, taking control of their finances, and building multi-generational wealth. That's Dynasty Wealth Partners. We focus on teaching people the book based on the book, Becoming Your Own Banker. And it's a concept that technically has been around for 200 years. So it's not something new. It's just spun a new way, and we can get into different parts of that, how I came around with it, and so forth. So,
well, fantastic, man. Well, thank you for being with us, and we're looking forward to another hour with you here coming up next week, which will be just right after this show. But we'll have the same clothes on and everything, so it'll look like but we're going to do this next week anyway.
Okay.
Anyway, I want to thank everybody for tuning in, especially our viewers out there that have been so kind to us. I want you to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast if you find it interesting and with full content. We also have a morning show, which is the weathered view. You can go on to X and go join in on that. And all you have to do is go follow me on my X profile, and you can get in there and you can talk to Jason, you can talk to Ken, you can talk to a whole bunch of characters that we have. And this is the weather report. And yes, Ken's got that weather. We do have swag, and you can get swag from this guy over there, right there. Horrible Designs. He's our swag guy.
How would you go about getting swag, Jason, if someone wanted to get swag from you? What exactly is Horrible Designs? It's a silent treatment. I'll do the thing. We can't hear you yet.
Oh, I had to turn my microphone on. So
you could do that.
I thought it was on, but I guess it was off.
Nothing but full professionality here in the peeling back the foreskin of technology.
The foreskin is something that I miss dearly from the day I was born. So yeah, you can go to my website at horribledesigns.com and get a whole bunch of different swag there. I sell mugs, t-shirts, vinyl decals, 20-ounce skinny tumblers, shot glasses, drink koozies, drink coasters, mouse pads, magnet stickers, and any other stupid stuff you want.
And let's just say, too, that's part of the way that we fund this whole program is buying stuff from Jason. And Bruce and I both buy stuff from Jason. Somehow that supports the show. But
yes.
We're at least buying stuff from Jason, so you need to as well.
It's kind of like infinite banking.
It's like infinite banking.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a circle jerk. Exactly.
Circle jerk.
Ken, go ahead and plug yourself before we leave.
Oh, it's a plug myself. I'm an artist. So your walls in your house are a bare mess. And when you're going to go to Target and Walmart and buy your crappy posters and stuff, why not instead go to them, actually buy from an actual artist? madkstudio.com, maddkstudio.com, your one-stop shop for all of your artwork needs. I've got new coloring books. I've got original artwork. I've even got prints. So anything in any price range, I've got you covered, and it's all done by me. So madkstudio.com, maddkstudio.com.
And I'm Bruce McGee from weatheredsoul.com. Go sign up for a monthly newsletter at weatheredsoul.com, and you can go in there. The website's down, but you can still sign up for the newsletter, and I got plenty of content out there to give you every week. And I want to thank Michael again for being here. We're going to be – go ahead, Jason.
Just going to say that if we don't have people that sign up for the Patreon, then Bruce is going to have to become an Avon lady again. We don't want that.
That's true.
I will be bolstering. I will not only be doing Plexus, but I'll be doing Avon also. So please help me. But anyway, we want to thank you. Be here again next week for another episode of the Weather Report. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week.